All right, so today we're going to be talking about moving thermal energy. So, thermal's heat, so we're going to talk about how that heat energy is moving. So, our goals today, the main ones we're going to focus on is the differentiation. So, to differ between conduction, convection, and radiation. And we're going to explain some common examples of those, such as ice in a soda to show the direction of energy flow. So, first, let's talk about temperature and heat. So, temperature is the measurement of the average kinetic energy of the molecules in a material. So, temperature is the measurement of the kinetic energy of the molecules that are inside a material. And heat, that thermal heat, is the transfer of kinetic energy from one material to another. So, we're going to really look at how that heat is transferred through three different processes. Really important. That's why it has its own slide. Heat flows from warmer to colder. Always. It's always going to do that. That's why it has its own slide. It's important. Write it down. Embrace it. Love it. Heat flows from warm to cold. So how does that happen? There are three different processes. One's called conduction, the other's called convection, and the third one's called radiation. Hopefully you've heard those three things before. You probably learned them at some point in your life. You might have forgot them, but bring them back into that brain. So first, conduction. So conduction is the transfer of thermal energy in solids. So the materials must be in direct contact with each other. So the heat source that must be in direct contact with another solid. So an example is heating the bottom of a pot on a stove. So look in the bottom right corner there. You see that pot is directly in contact with the stove. So it's transferring the heat from the stove to the pot. And then if you touched it with your hand, you would be burned if it had a metal handle on it. And then also you have the example of the coffee cup, the hot coffee, and the spoon. So it is transferring through that direct solid spoon there into your hand if you touch it and get burned. Also another example here of conduction. We have a candle being burned and then a metal rod warmed up through it, and you're touching it. The heat will be transferring to your hand and burning you. So probably don't do that. Now, our favorite recap time. Explain what conduction is. So give me a explanation, and then provide an example with a sketch, meaning that you're going to sketch out an example of conduction, and then you're going to explain your example and why that is an example of conduction. All right, so convection. Convection is the transfer of thermal energy in liquids and gases. So liquids and gases. So the matter actually moves from one place to another. So that actual liquid or gas is moving from one place to another. So if you look at the examples here of the pot on the stove with the matter inside of it. So if you look, the water, right, that's inside of it, it's going to move from warm to cool, right? So the water at the bottom is going to be the hottest because it's closest to the heat source. That's going to move up from warm to cold, right? And then it's going to cycle back through. So you can kind of see here with that cycle, right, where it's going to move from warm to colder. It's kind of here on the side. Another example here. So we have cool air, right? This comes in, touches the hot surface. The hot surface rises, right? The air rises off the hot surface. So that hot air then rises. So the cool air goes down because cool is more dense. So it's going to be pushed down, touches the hot surface, right? Then the air on the hot surface then rises up on the hot, and so the hot air rises, right? That's why we say warm air rises, it's less dense. So that cool air swoops down in, touches the hot surface, right? The hot air rises then off of that. Recap time. Explain what convection is. So now give me an example of what that is, along with an explanation of what it is. Please include a sketch just like you did for conduction. Radiation, our final thermal energy transfer here. So radiation is the transfer of energy by electromagnetic radiation. Okay, so this is a transferring of energy through space. No matter is required. So you're able to transfer energy through space. All right, so if you look at the example here, energy is transferred by electromagnetic radiation. There's a fire, right? So that would be an example of radiation. Here's a picture with all of our beautiful thermal energy transfers happening in one. We love it. 3 in 1. All right. So we have radiation coming from fire down here, right? It's traveling through space, right? Then we have convection happening with the warm rising and the cool falling. Warm rising, cool falling, right? And this is like you're boiling up some water for some delicious macaroni and cheese, you know, or whatever else, ramen noodles, whatever you're into. And then you have conduction, because I have that solid of the pot transferring heat to my hand and burning it. That's not great though. All right, recap time. Explain what radiation is. Give an explanation. And then provide an example with a sketch. So the same thing you did for conduction and convection. Explain it, sketch it, explain your example, and you're done. All right, so have you ever noticed that on a hot summer day, the pool is cooler than the cement? Or maybe that the ocean's cooler than the hot sand? Why might that be? Well, the sun has been beating down or delivering energy to both of them for the same amount of time, same amount of energy. But it takes more thermal energy to raise the temperature of water than it does the cement. So that radiation from the sun is coming down and it is delivering, right, that same thermal energy, but it takes longer to warm the water than either the cement or the sand. Water absorbs a lot of heat energy before its temperature changes, while sand needs little heat energy before its temperature increases. So sand is going to have a different heat point to where it's going to not need as much thermal energy to heat up. So that's why the sand's always warm at the beach. Meanwhile, the water takes a lot longer for the temperature to change because it absorbs most of the heat energy. All right, thank you for watching. Oh, wait a second. Recap time. Conduction can best be described as the transfer of energy through A, by traveling through space as waves, B, by the movement of fluids, C, by the expansion of gases, or D, by the contact between particles or solids. All right, answer that and then you're done. Have a great day.